So this is quite an interesting one that I saw today about Rightmove. Rightmove is actually saying asking prices rise, but sellers are waiting 16 days longer to find a buyer overall. It's quite an interesting statistic, but the article goes on to say, and I'll just read it out to you so you understand it. But there's some graphs as well. There's a conflicting message in the property market right now. One, people are saying that, example, as soon as Rightmove said, there's a good start to the year, things are going on the upscale. The next person comes on the media and says, well, the market's going down, transactional numbers are decreasing. Who's right in this conversation about what the property market's going? So over the next 10 minutes, I'll have a wee discussion about it, and I'll show you what my findings are, and also what against Rightmove's findings, and we'll come up with some sort of consensus about where the five property market is overall right now, even the UK property market actually. Okay, so let's start off. If you've got any questions, please feel free to shout out, mention anything, or ask any questions. More than happy to help at this point in time. So during the first 6 weeks of 2024, the number of properties coming onto the market was 7% higher than the same period last year, according to Rightmove. While the number of buyers inquiring to estate agents was also 7% higher, the index shows for Rightmove. The number of sales being agreed, according to Rightmove, is now 3% higher than this time in 2019, pre-pandemic. It's quite interesting. So Tim Bannister, a property expert for Rightmove, said that we said that February would be an important indicator for the year ahead. This is where we are right now. And the question is whether the Rightmove Boxing Day bounce in buyer activity would keep its spring into March or lose momentum. That's the key and instrumental here. It's proved to be the former. So it's actually, they think it possibly is keeping its bounce, the Boxing Day bounce, into March, with the number of sales agreed continuing to considerably outstrip last year at the same period. Early bird Boxing Day buyers got a head start in cherry picking from a record level of new property choice and have now been joined by many others buyers also believing that 2024 offers the right market conditions to move. Mortgage rates have actually fallen considerably from the peak and are now remaining broadly stable after the uncertainty of the late 2022 and 2023. So Rightmove go on to say out of this that momentum to move in 2024 is continuing to build as a result of that. This means that buyers now have a choice of property sale, and many are still price sensitive. With mortgage rates remaining elevated, sellers who are serious about moving this year would be well advised to ride the wave of increased buyer confidence and an attractive and with an attractive asking price, actually. So that's the key here. Before any pre-election jitters or unexpected events that dampen the momentum. They also actually mention Rightmove going to say that average asking prices have grown on an annual basis for the first time in the 6 months, but properties are taking longer to go under offer. Properties are taking a lot longer to go under offer, and we could see that locally as well. The latest Rightmove House Price Index for Rightmove for January shows an average new seller asking prices rose by 0.9% or £3,091 on a monthly basis to 362,839. And this is right across the UK. On a local level, we've kind of seen that in Fife as well, just move slightly up to about 175,000 year on year. While annual growth was up slightly, according to Rightmove, at 0.1%. That's nothing at all. Neither here nor there, I suppose. It follows annual falls every month since August 2023, according to Rightmove. So Rightmove suggests, and this is what I've been saying all along, actually, the market is working at two speeds. Some agents report the accurate and competitively priced properties are being snapped up by budget-conscious buyers, but others are being left on the shelf. It is now taking an average seller more than 2 weeks, 16 days longer to find a buyer than this same time last year. To find a buyer, it is its slowest since 2015. So hold in there. If you've put your house on the market, your expectations of it flying off the shelf anytime soon Has got to come back and come back to the reality of the situation right now. The time to find a buyer is at its slowest level, according to Rightmove, right throughout the UK since 2015. Now that's excluding the initial lockdown months of April to May 2020, and it is at a 78-day on average. And this is what was said before. So if you look at Fife, for example, if you bring down Fife, it's probably around about 1,000 properties available on the market right now to buy. But there's round about 500 every single month getting sold. So therefore, it tells you straight away 2 months stock on average. So it's literally taking 2 months on average to sell a property in Fife. But Rightmove are now reporting it's taking a bit longer, according to their website, by another 16 days. And that kind of falls in line, because if they're sitting at 78 days, you take off the 16 days, we're down to around about 62 days, which is the 2 months that we talked about in terms of Fife. So Fife is running more or less in par with what Rightmove are saying right now. So there's a great start to the new year. And buyers, there's a great start to New Year, but they are actually saying budget conscious buyers are the ones there and actually making that decision. And these sellers are pricing for that person and that type of market are actually selling their properties. The ones that are holding out for the hope of getting a huge amount way beyond their home report value are the ones that are still sitting on the shelf. The portal goes on to add that buyers are now have more time to consider which property is right for them, making it even more important for sellers to price temptingly and stand out from the crowd. So if you've been on for a while, maybe it's time to start reviewing your price point, because that is it's all a fishing exercise, winding it in. That's all. The whole point of the price point at the beginning is to encourage somebody to actually get them through the door, to then potentially use your estate agent to push them back up and get the right price for it. So that is what that's all about in the beginning. This is all about clever marketing, digital marketing, hitting the right people, and then negotiating strong at the end to basically bring in a home run from the very beginning. Rightmove's analysis actually goes to say it also shows that sellers who price right initially are far more likely to find a buyer and sell more quickly. Number of sales agreed in the first 6 weeks in the year is 16% higher than the same period last year. And that then goes on, as I said, to during the first 6 weeks of 2024, the number of properties coming to the market was 7% higher, number of buyers was 7% higher, and now they're 3% higher than it was in 2029. Interestingly enough, this is a graphic. One of my friends, actually, he's a real guru when it comes down to analysis. Chris. So Chris has actually shown me this graphic, and it's actually quite interesting because this is a number of properties for sale in the UK. Every 6 months or every quarter, I think it is possibly since 2017. So you can see there when we zoom in 2017, we're sitting round about see there in 2017 January, we're sitting at round about 500, just over 500,000, probably 525,000 available for sale in the UK. And then that goes up. There's a lot more supply coming into the market. And that's why 2017, 2018, 2019, the prices were pretty stable, but they weren't flying off the shelf. You weren't getting huge amounts of money for your property. And then all of a sudden, you can see where the stock starts to drop. So see where the stock starts to drop right down here. So the number of properties actually available for buying are significantly less. They're almost near enough half of what they were in 2017. Hence the reason why this scramble, especially with interest rates at that point in time, at a record low still, the base rates was still round about probably 0.5%, 1%. So it was still way down. And then you had the stamp duty holidays and you had incentives to buy, and then they all came into the market, and that boomed the whole market and actually pushed all the prices back up in terms of what you were getting. So then index, so more or less inflationary pressure came into the housing market and pushed all the house prices up to I think to an equilibrium of where they should have been in the first place, because wages had doubled since the last 20 years, but house prices hadn't necessarily followed that track. Plus the fact interest rates had gone down significantly in the last 20 years for base rates and also for mortgages. Therefore, you've got a double whammy there. You've got availability of cash flow in a family at that point in time in the pandemic and just before the pandemic has actually been pretty good. Disposable income was pretty high, and also with record levels of low interest rates, the finance was obviously cheap to get as well. Hence the reason when all that money was pumped into the economy from the lockdown, from furlough and that, 180 billion was sloshing about in people's household budgets, 180 billion pounds worth of money. Therefore, that then got injected in the system and caused this problem of a huge housing boom. But look at where the numbers are now. We've gone, supply has repeatedly and continually started to flow upwards there. You can see the 525,000 and moving right up. And then supply started to dwindle towards the start of 2024. And it's this dwindle in supply, it's actually creating this at this point in time and actually helping the market stabilize and not fall extremely into a buyer's market. So we're sitting in a balanced market right now. And what a balanced market means for buyers and for sellers is it's no buyer's golden opportunity to lowball offers. It's not a seller's golden opportunity to get as much money way over the home report as before. But for the one-offs that can happen, as I explained at the weekend, if you'd seen the Sunday night update, we had ones that were going for 16 and 20% over the home report value, which represent about 50 and 55,000 pounds extra over and above for some unique properties. That's the key here. So you'll get the 1 and 2s. And we've had a closing date as well, as in the area. So we'll have closing dates as well still, but they're not as there's few and far between in comparison to what they were in the last 2 or 3 years. So we have a stabilized market this time. It's a good start to the year, but as Rightmove is saying right there, and you can read it in this text because I've actually just copied and pasted their text into here, so you can actually see what they've said word for word and verbatim, basically. That the market has got a good start to the year. However, for sellers have understood where pricing is right now, they're able to sell their properties at a good price. So there's a win-win between savvy buyers as well. But the ones that are still over-optimistic about what they're going to achieve are the ones that are sitting on the shelf right now. Now, we're going to come up to a time in the next month or two when we come into spring, when everything's full bloom. You can see the snowdrops coming out just now as well, where gardens are going into bloom now, and more people are going to come into the market. There's going to be a lot of people coming into the market to sell their properties in the next 2 or 3 months, and that is going to flood the market with more properties. So that graph there that you see here, with it low just into this beginning of this year down at 510,000, is probably more than likely going to start to move up. Now, you've seen that trend. If you can look back, look, there's the yellow indicators of the January of each year, and you can see after there where it came down, and then it goes back up when it comes into the May period. From April to May, it starts to climb, and then it starts to drop back down again in terms of supply. And you can see again, it starts to climb from January up here, and then climb in January, and then I think in here in January onwards, it will start to climb again. So you've got a golden opportunity right now for people to twofold here. There's twofold here. If you're on the market right now, if you're thinking going on the market right now, price appropriately, curb your expectations a bit. If it happens, it happens. Happy days. If it doesn't, you know where you stand. And also for the ones that are on the market right now, be a bit more savvy and start to review your price point and start to think about where you can do to attract a buyer through the door, to push yourself back up, to get you moving on. After all, this is what it's all about. Now, what you'll notice though, is if the people were expecting far more and they've been on the market for quite a while, you were expecting significantly more. But what you're buying as well will be at the same price point, equilibrium, because you're now wanting to buy a property at that price, and you're not wanting to pay over the odds either. So the person wanting to buy your house isn't wanting to pay over the odds. The person you're buying a house from isn't wanting to pay over the odds. So we're now back at this equilibrium. So this is like someone expecting, I want 10% more than mine for mine, but I don't want to pay 10% more for the one that I'm buying. That just doesn't happen. But what's happening in the boom? People are paying 10% more, but they were actually getting 10% more as well. So you have to understand that market. If the market is not prepared to pay 10% more, or they're not prepared to pay significantly more than the home report value, then you've got to think in a similar sort of vein. It's a different market than it was a year or even or even substantially 2 years ago in terms of where it is. All the pricing is stabilized where it is right now. Laura, I'm just having a wee read of what you're saying here. Yeah, that's a good one. It's actually quite a good one. Laura says right there, so do the estate agents ask the seller what they are hoping to achieve, or do they just assume that the seller wants as much as possible? No, well, when you come to us, we actually ask the seller, what's your expectations? What are you hoping to achieve? Where are you thinking about right now? But then we also tell people fundamentally about where the market is right now, hence the reason why we're doing these blogs and vlogs every single day for that reason. And we're putting out loads and loads of content to educate people where the market is right now, buyers and sellers overall. And then what as well we're trying to do is we're trying to then demonstrate it by showing examples. So when I go out to see somebody, for example, to do market appraisal, I'm quite candid about the fact that this is where the market is right now. We're sitting in a balanced market. It does not mean then if I get a home report for you at 300,000 that you're going to suddenly get an offer of 330,000 overnight, and it's going to happen all at once. I do say as well that on average it's taken 2 months to sell a property. Yours might sell a wee bit quicker, it might sell a wee bit later, but that's the average that's running it right now. So I'm not sure what anybody else does, but that's certainly what I do when I go out to see people. I give them the facts and then I let them decide what they want to do from there. I think that for me is probably the most important message I can put forward for everybody. It is actually just to make sure that everybody understands what market we're in right now. The buyers are actually a lot less than they were before. It does say on Rightmove they've gone up a bit, but they were significantly dwindled in terms of where it is, and it is affordability all comes down to as well. There's a huge affordability problem here, and the banks just have to get that right. But we're not going to see base rates coming down anytime soon because of the situation we have right now with inflation and potentially with what's happening. I've heard as well there's other items of goods and services we're not actually getting coming into the country because of the issue with the attacks from the pirates in the Red Sea. It's weird to actually say that there are pirates in the Red Sea, but they're attacking the tankers and the ships that are actually bringing everything through the Suez. So they're having to go way around the bottom. So therefore, there's a restriction in that, and therefore that could end up pushing inflation up a bit more, or keeping inflation where it is. And then the Bank of England turns around and says, "Well, we're not actually going to reduce base rates right now." Therefore, the market responds by saying, mortgages are where they're right now as well, and people just get a wee bit jittery and a wee bit fearful. So it is having to wait a wee bit longer than usual, but everybody's more or less in the same boat at this point in time. If you look right across the board, if it's at your price point, if it's at anybody else's price point, everybody is having a similar experience at this point in time. The properties that are flying off the shelf is generally the ones about up to 100,000, up to 150, maybe up to 200,000 at a push, because they're extremely affordable, and that works into the person that's looking for the budget savvy buyers at this for that reason. The properties way beyond that are then obviously your buyer's market starts to dwindle, because as you go higher in terms of the purchase price, the affordability index gets a lot lower for people, because they could have afforded a lot more per month on a mortgage a year or even 2 years ago, significantly more than they can now if they need a mortgage. £800 now a month, a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago now, would get you a £200,000 mortgage. Now it'll get you about £140,000 mortgage. So there's a 60,000 shortfall in terms of people's purchasing power, and therefore that's why they're having to curb their budgets and look at their affordability overall as well. That could change. We're in a balanced market, but we're not sure where it's going to go next, because the data is not giving us any strong signals of one way or another. It's probably going to be balanced at this point in time. So hopefully that's given everybody an insight into where we are right now, where the market is right now, what the expectations are. But just at the start of the year, there'll be more buyers coming to the market now. Nights are getting brighter. Viewings usually are done day to day when nights get brighter. So things start to speed up as a result. Just a natural cycle, because generally when it's darker during the winter periods, people are viewing from weekend to weekend. So it takes a week for somebody to book a viewing in, because that's when the time that they've got off. That's when the time it's light during the day, so they can actually see outside and they can see inside the property as well, and they can see the garden and everything. But when it gets lighter during the spring and during the summer, that's when people can view from day to day. So things start to speed up as well. So hopefully that's given you a good insight overall, and for everybody else. Until next time, guys. I'm Jim Parker for 5 Properties TV. Bye bye for now.